Hello everyone, my name is Derek McCormack and I'm a professor of cultural geography in the School of Geography and Environment at the University of Oxford, and I'm also a tutorial fellow at Mansfield College. So just a little bit about me. I teach a range of courses on the human geography papers in the department, and my research is about different ways in which we try to make sense of the world through cultural practices such as film, art, literature, etc. I'm Irish, although I've lived in the UK for about 20 years. I'm from the first generation of my family to study full-time at university. I didn't originally start off studying geography. I began a degree in chemistry and then decided that I didn't want to become a chemist. Then I worked with Intel for a while, and then I saved up my fees for university and then went back and spent them on a geography degree. So, as you might imagine, I have a certain kind of vested interest in the value and importance of geography. So why should you think about studying geography at university? And I think that's a particularly important question because unlike some subjects, for instance, medicine or law or maybe engineering, it doesn't perhaps offer a pathway to a career that's immediately obvious. But I think if you are interested in the world and interested in the deepening interconnections in an ever more complex world, then geography is the kind of subject that you should really think seriously about studying at university. In some ways, it's a unique subject insofar as it offers you the chance to approach things and questions and problems simultaneously from the point of view of the natural sciences and from the social sciences, and, if you're interested, from the point of view of the humanities. So in that sense, it provides a really interesting combination of analytical, critical, and also at times technical skills and approaches with which to understand and contribute to a range of important real-world problems. And it's especially useful, I think, for helping us understand questions that are simultaneously local and global. Two obvious examples. Climate change is both an abstract problem that seems to exist beyond the capacity of any of us to understand or control, but it's also something that many of us increasingly are feeling in our everyday lives. So geographers are really interested in that relationship between the global and the local. A second example, it's very, very close to home, is the COVID-19 pandemic, which on one level is a global problem and increasingly global all the time, but on another level is something that is rearranging and reorganizing our everyday spaces and times in profound and sometimes unsettling ways. I mentioned that unlike other subjects, geography doesn't appear to, at least initially, offer a pathway to a definite or distinct career. You rarely hear, for instance, of professional geographers in the same way that you hear of lawyers or engineers or doctors. But this doesn't seem to be a problem for our graduates. In fact, geographers have a fantastic employability record. And I know this in part because every year many of the geographers, many of the graduates from different generations of geography at Mansfield come back to the college for a dinner, and it's always really, really interesting just to hear and learn about the very, very diverse range of careers that they go into. And lots of them, for instance, do become lawyers. They undertake law conversion courses and then go into various aspects of law. Lots of them become consultants with a range of different organizations and accountancy firms, etc. Many of them go into public bodies, the civil service. Many of them go into a range of different startup companies, and some of them go into teaching, others go into research, And I think what employers across all of those areas really like is that a geography degree, and again, unlike many other degrees, combines literacy and numeracy. So it combines the sorts of skills that you need to negotiate different spheres of professional focus. So it provides skills that are both about comprehending and producing written work, and if needs be, being able to analyze and produce technical documents. So while geography is a subject that will make you eminently employable, we would hope also that studying geography at university will give you a real sense of your place in the world and how that place relates to the places of others, and also the complex spatial and temporal relations and entanglements that exist between people. So we have a real sense of a geography degree as part of the process of people becoming better citizens of the world, and also citizens of the world that are aware of the ethical, political, and moral questions associated with decisions about where things go, who has access to resources, and what are the consequences of organizing the world in particular ways. So who are we interested in talking to and having apply to us? We don't look for geography as a prerequisite. We're really interested in anybody who has a curiosity about the world, a curiosity about why the world is the way it is, what are the connections between people and places, and how might the world be imagined or understood differently. And for us, you can learn or demonstrate your curiosity in relation to those questions on the basis of any kind of experience. You don't need to climb, for instance, to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro to have some kind of epiphany-like moment in order to understand why geography matters. You can learn as much by working part-time at Tesco, for instance, or you can learn as much by observing what goes on in your local park, who uses the park, who has access to the park, etc. So geography for us is as much about understanding the ordinary, the everyday, as it is about the spectacular or the dramatic. So don't feel, if you're thinking about applying to geography, that you haven't traveled the world, or that you haven't had opportunities to travel the world, or that you haven't had an internship in a big law firm or whatever else. It really doesn't matter. What matters is that you're curious about why things are the way they are. You're interested in learning how to understand those issues, and you think it's important to have the opportunity to try and contribute to changing those things. In terms of your application, we, as I said, don't require geography as a prerequisite, and we're not interested in any specific combination of subjects, in part because geography is sufficiently broad that people from predominantly scientific, or people whose subject focus at school is predominantly science, are equally as interesting to us as people whose focus is more towards the social sciences or the arts. We use the personal statement primarily as the basis for a conversation, and that conversation is the Oxford interview. So my advice would be, in crafting your personal statement, don't put down anything that you're not willing to talk about, or you're not kind of enthusiastic about talking about. Again, you don't have to feel worried if the personal statement isn't laden with fantastic voyages. That's not the point of the personal statement. It's to give us a sense that you could think, and that you're curious. The interview itself again, we treat that as a conversation with you. It's not an interrogation. It's not an opportunity for us to trip anybody up. We see it as an occasion at which we can learn as much about you and your interests. You will have 2 interviews at Mansfield if you're interviewed at Mansfield, and we organize them on the basis of human geography and physical geography, but other subjects do that differently. I really do hope that you will think about applying to study geography at Mansfield. If you do apply and you're successful in your application, in addition to myself, you'll also be taught by Dr. Amber Murray, who is a political geographer with expertise on decolonial processes, on social change and resistance in Africa, and also by Dr. Ash Parton, whose expertise lies in the area of paleo environments, and in particular the relationship between drylands and environmental change. I'd also suggest that Mansfield is a particularly good place to think about applying if you're interested in geography, but also Oxford more generally. And I would say that because I work here and I've worked here for some time, and to some extent, every Oxford college will say the same thing, and that's only fair. And as soon as you arrive at a college, you'll develop an allegiance to that particular college. But Mansfield suits me in part because it feels like the place that most closely approximates the real world, that most closely represents, insofar as an Oxford college can represent, the diversity of the kinds of worlds that most of you live in. And I think that that's really, really important. We'll never ever be able to say that Oxford colleges are exactly the same as the wider world, but certainly my sense of Mansfield, after having been here for a few years, is that its mission really is to develop a centre of academic excellence that is open and diverse in the best possible way. So I really hope to see some of you apply to study geography at Mansfield, and if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me via email.